But without further ado, let's dive in. So today we're talking about the $5 million to $15 million landscape growth playbook for 2026. We're going to be going over the proven marketing system to create more predictable demand, stronger pipeline visibility, and a more valuable business. So let's start off by talking about why growth starts feeling more difficult around that $5 million milestone, right? So building the business so far, you know that referrals, hustle, effort, and reputation, word of mouth got you here. But unfortunately, those are the same methods that start creating friction at scale. And now growth starts to feel reactive instead of intentional because those things that got you here are not the same things that are going to propel you to that next milestone, that next growth milestone, right? You can only work so hard, you can only get so far with individual effort and without building systems and repeatable methods to continue that growth, right? So the things that got you to this point are now unfortunately going to be the same things that are a bottleneck for you to continue to scale. And here's what we see across the top 10% of the landscape industry, right? This is actual data based on information from hundreds and hundreds of conversations with businesses in the industry just like you. We hear all the time, day in and day out. We often hear spend is disconnected from your goals, channels aren't working together, and there's no visibility into what's actually working and what's actually getting you results, right? 70% of the people we've talked to have been burned by previous agencies. Either the experience was terrible or the results weren't there to justify the investment, right? 62% of companies we speak with don't have any sales or marketing systems. Instead, they just have a few isolated tactics. Maybe you're running some Google ads. Maybe you're trying out meta ads. Maybe you got a new website and did some basic SEO, but there's no holistic system that ties everything together in relation to your goal, right? That's 62% of the people we speak with. 47% say whatever they're doing with marketing just is bringing in low quality leads. The quality isn't there and it has to be there in order for the investment to make sense, right? And 41% of people say they don't have any visibility into performance. They're basically just throwing money at the wall, trying to see if anything works, if anything sticks, and whether it does or doesn't, they don't understand what's working, or if it's not working, how to fix it, right? So most landscape businesses think they have a channel problem, when in reality, it's a sequencing and infrastructure problem. A lot of times I hear, oh, if we could just get our Google ads to work better, if we could just improve the ROI of our meta ads, we would be able to crack this thing. When in reality, there's a lot of foundational work that you need to do in order to make that happen. You're diagnosing the symptom instead of the root cause issue, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about in terms of a holistic playbook today. And let's talk about how this playbook is currently affecting your peers, some of the partners that we work with in the top 10% of the industry. For example, Ambler saw a 40% increase in revenue within the first year of working with us. Heiner Outdoor Living came to us frustrated and skeptical of agencies, but over 2 years, we fueled a 35% revenue boost. And BTS Landscaping, one of our great long-term partners who I previously had the pleasure of working with specifically, went from $2 million to $9 million in annual revenue over the years of our partnership. So this playbook works. Gerard De Castro, the owner of Premier Outdoor Group, says the reality is you need the results, otherwise it's not worth it, right? Everyone knows that. Halstead has delivered time and time again, from smaller construction projects to much larger design build projects, all the way up to a gunite pool rebrand. And now we're powering this growth across multiple states as we went through a rebrand. So this has been great to see. By the way, my name's Austin. I work closely with landscape companies doing over $4 million in annual revenue every day. I actually started in the trenches executing this playbook as a project manager, and now I help design the systems behind growth and pipeline. And I have the benefit of getting insights into exactly what breaks at the different stages of growth, having continuously speaking to companies who are doing this day in and day out, right? And who is Halstead? We are a marketing and sales enablement agency serving the $4 million plus landscapers to connect marketing, sales, and operations so that you can see, predict, and scale with confidence. So if you're here, just want to be clear, this is for both residential and commercial landscape companies that are already doing around $5 million in annual revenue or really pushing towards it. You already have real delivery, real crews, real operational complexity. You can repeatedly produce high quality work, right? That's not the constraint, but now we need to scale. And you know the question is not, should we market? It's how do we scale with more control? So let's get started. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. There will be a question and A section at the end of this, but I will get to those. If you have any questions in the chat, I will see them. So let's get started. All right, the 2026 growth stack. We are going to break this down into sections, starting with strategy, strategizing with intention, building brand and relationships through a multi-channel approach, and then driving pipeline and closing deals through systems leverage, automation, CRMs, things like that. There are a few key components of this growth stack. So it starts with the strategic foundation where we're defining the brand, the messaging, the roadmap, how it all connects to your goals, right? And then the demand generation, the engine, is broken down into short-term demand, mid-term demand, long-term growth. And at the foundation of all this, there's also a conversion layer, which is your website, your CRM, your nurture sequences that turn demand into real pipeline and predictability and enable your sales teams. And when it all comes together, it's a scalable system, a repeatable growth playbook for future branches and markets if your goal is expanding into different markets, different locations, even acquisitions, things like that, right? So starting with part one, the foundation, strategizing with intention. I want to be very, very clear here. The strategy is the foundation for everything else. Do not skip this. A lot of companies or a lot of marketing departments will skip this and go right to the multi-channel, or sometimes it's multi-channel, but the demand generation section of this playbook. And it's already set up for failure because it's not aligned with your goals and your priorities and the strategy that is the foundation of everything else to build on top of, right? So we need to, first of all, get clarity on growth goals and prioritize those intentionally. Next, you need to define your brand positioning in the market and craft your messaging around that position. So really understanding, what do you do better than anyone else in the market? What's your tangible differentiator? What makes you stand out? How do you solve problems better than your competition? And you need to craft that messaging around it and make it very clear. You need to communicate it very clearly and have that strategy reflected across all your website, your content, your ads, your blog posts, your sales conversations, everything. So this strategy is the foundation. We cannot skip this. And I want to touch on the difference between residential and commercial because some of you on here today are running residential focused businesses and some of you are running commercial focused businesses, right? So I've included just two website screenshot examples of some of the immediate differences, at least on a website. But I want to be very clear, both require the same core growth system, but the positioning, the messaging, and the delivery has to match the ICP. So your ideal customer persona or profile, right? You're not going to speak to a residential homeowner the same way you're going to speak to a property manager if you're focused on gaining more commercial work, right? These cannot be approached with a same blanket strategy, which oftentimes we see people trying to do, and it just does not work. They are two distinct strategies. So the foundation has to be set correctly before that demand generation works. So Diving in a little more into these key differences, as you probably already know, residential often needs stronger visual demand creation and faster conversion. It's more emotional decision making, and there are typically fewer decision makers involved in the process, right? Shorter sales cycles. The messaging is different, the process is different, right? But then commercial often needs longer cycle visibility, nurturing and building trust and credibility and authority over time. It's more often logical decision making, and more decision makers are involved. And some of you are running hybrid companies, both residential and commercial, right? So you need segmented messaging, funnels, and attribution for both customer journeys. It has to be displayed clearly across the website. Customer journeys from ads to landing pages need to be distinct for both the commercial and residential segments if you are running both. They cannot be blended together. That will cause confusion, and confused prospects do not buy. They do not sign contracts if they are confused. We need clarity. And then just a quick note on our H platform system. So I covered our H core, which is typically our residential system, and then our H commercial system. But we also have something called our H platform system, which gives you the framework, the data flow, and the visibility required to unify brands, measure performance, and scale predictable growth across every opco, or if you are running multiple branches in multiple locations. So some of you may be growing via acquisitions rather than organic growth, and you need an additional data and systems and reporting layer in order to unify all those locations, those branches, those sometimes different brands. If you're a holding company, you need a unified layer in order to measure performance and roll up in one comprehensive system. So we do offer that. That's not going to be the focus of today's talk, but I do just want to mention that for those of you who are either growing via acquisitions or have multiple locations in multiple markets. So let's get into how strategy ties into budgets. So let's talk budgets, goals, and timing. I want to start off by saying ambition without investment creates disappointment. So as you should understand, your goals, your investment is going to be dependent on your goals. Oftentimes we use a percentage. We say 3 to 5% of revenue is a useful benchmark for your digital marketing investment. Now, this is going to depend on factors like your growth goals, your current market share, the competition, how much they're spending on digital advertising. All of this goes into determining how much you need to be investing in your digital advertising budget. For example, bigger growth goals require sustained year-round investment. That might be bumped up to 7 to 10% if you're breaking into a new market or you have aggressive revenue goals. Or if you're just trying to shift the business and focus on maybe one division specifically, you're not trying to overextend yourself. Maybe you want to focus on profitability and reducing windshield time for your maintenance division. Maybe that's more in the 3 to 4%. So budget is tied up into strategy and timing, and that investment needs to adequately reflect your goals and strategy. Now, diving into more of the specifics on how the strategy is going to influence everything. Your website is the foundation of all of your marketing efforts, not just your digital marketing efforts. Everyone who sees your brand, from direct mail to sponsored events to paid ads, will all go to your website to learn more about you. If you have leave behinds for commercial landscape conversations, or if you're doing direct mailers, door hangers, sponsoring sports events, people are going to see your business and your logo, and what are they going to do? They're going to go search you online on Google. They're going to look up your company and go to your website to learn more before reaching out, right? So your website is the foundation, and it needs to reflect your brand and perform as an asset. Your website is a sales rep, not a brochure. A lot of people think it just needs to look nice and reflect what you do, but your website really needs to qualify, reassure, and guide visitors. It's not enough for it to just look pretty. The site speed, the user experience, segmented CTAs, proof, high quality assets, video, all of these things all matter in terms of performance on your website. And if it does not convert visitors into prospects, you are wasting money. If you are sending paid traffic, if you are sending organic traffic and people are seeing your site and that first impression doesn't guide them to take the action you want them to, you are wasting money. You are doing things in the wrong order. Again, going back to that sequencing and infrastructure problem, not a single channel problem. And let's talk about messaging. Let's talk about messaging and how that influences the strategy, right? Most companies talk about the services they offer. They talk about themselves. We've been in business for 30 plus years. We have great reviews. We do all these different things, right? But better companies make the customer or your prospect the hero or the center of attention. And now if you position yourself to showcase that you understand their pain points, you understand their problems and the challenges they're trying to overcome, and you flip the script to focus on them, they are going to feel like, oh, this company gets me, they understand, and they understand the real challenges I'm going through. I'm going to go with them. This is more enticing. This is more convincing. Clarity and understanding improve conversion rates and sales conversations. Again, would you expect a sales rep to show up to an appointment with a prospect and just talk about themselves? Or would you expect them to ask the prospect, so why did you originally reach out? Help me understand the problems you're going through, and then craft a solution tailored to their specific pain points, right? So here at Halstead, we are a story brand certified agency. It's basically a framework to execute everything I just explained, how to take the spotlight off of yourself and put it on your prospects. We are a story brand certified agency. There are a few out there as well, but the important thing is having the industry expertise to guide that framework, right? That industry expertise really matters as well. So when you combine those two, it gets pretty powerful. And I just wanted to show an example. So I looked up any landscaping company near me, just found a random one, and I decided to click on their grading and water drainage page, right? So here's a typical example. Blurred out the company name for privacy. And it says yard grading for water drainage. We now offer grading that will improve uneven or sloped areas in your yard. Also, if you have issues with water drainage due to poor grading, XYZ Landscape can remedy that too. Again, talking about the specific service and what they offer versus a story branded approach with one of our partners on the right. It's their grading and water drainage page. The title is When Your Water Stops Working Against Your Property. Standing water, erosion, and runoff problems rarely fix themselves. You need a clear plan for where the water is coming from and where it should go. Our crews identify water issues and how to move it more effectively to ensure your yard drains properly and stays usable after heavy rain. So can you see the difference? It gets past the what into the so what of having a yard that stays usable after heavy rain, really showcasing an understanding of the pain point and how to fix it, needing a plan to understand where the water is coming from and where it should go and how they are positioned to help better than any other option. So that is part one, the foundation. Now we're going to move into part two. This is going to get a little in the weeds in terms of tactics, but this is all very important, very valuable information. So we're going to cover a lot in this section specifically. This is the engine, the building your brand and the relationships. So we're going to start off with SEO and AI visibility for long-term growth, authority, and steady inbound leads. Search in 2026 means Google and AI visibility, right? You might have heard people saying, oh, SEO is dead. And that's absolutely not the case. It just looks different. SEO now needs to incorporate AI visibility and AI optimization into that service, right? So Google still captures high intent buyers, but AI now influences earlier discovery and comparison. So strong visibility now requires both search presence and entity authority. Not going to get into the details there, but a quick description is if you Google Apple, what you will now find is not a fruit, but the tech company Apple, right? And that's a short example of what entity authority means. And number four, SEO is no longer just rankings, it's market-wide discoverability. So it's authority-driven content, relevant content, content that's poised to answer common questions. You'll see a lot of FAQs popping up more predominantly on sites. This is an effort to rank higher in those AI searches and overviews so that you are more visible. So for example, I just looked up who's the best landscape company in Chicago, and you can see the first thing that pops up here is an AI overview with links and suggestions, right? So that's going to influence decision making earlier in the process, and SEO needs to be a part of that. And visibility is now a competitive advantage. Most agencies are still managing for the present, not preparing for what's next. They'll dismiss it and say, it doesn't matter. Google's search volume is orders of magnitude times higher than people using ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity. And while that's true, there are still people using it, and you're still going to get an AI overview for most searches regardless, right? So baseline SEO is not enough when search behavior is shifting. And so if you have a partner who isn't focused on results, staying ahead of the curve, staying ahead of trends, they're going to brush it under the rug and your results are going to suffer. But when you have a retention focused partner like Halstead, everything downstream from there follows in terms of results, experience, quality, talent. You need someone who's built to stay ahead of the curve, and future-proof visibility protects demand pipeline and expansion plans. So you can see we have tools like AI visibility tracking to see how you rank in terms of your competitors, your overall visibility, your average position, things like that. So we can incorporate this new technology into traditional processes. So now moving from SEO into Google Ads, paid media, right? We want to capture that existing demand that's already being searched, and we need to capture it fast. So demand already exists for the services you offer, and there are tools you can use to measure it. So Google has keyword research volume and forecast tools where you can list keywords for your exact services. You can list the exact locations of your service areas, and you can see how much demand already exists for the services you offer, and you can plan around that. So it's not a matter of if people searching, it's just a matter of how much they're searching for which keywords and in which locations. And you can also use it to help plan your budget. There are some budgeting tools and columns in this tool as well. So paid search, both Google responsive ads and local search ads, both reach buyers with immediate intent. Now, there are benefits and trade-offs to both, and it depends on your strategy, but RSAs and LSAs are going to be your main form of capturing demand with Google Ads. And when you're launching Google ad campaigns, it's important that you have precision targeting, keyword sculpting, and someone monitoring your campaigns regularly to protect your ROI. You want to make sure that you're going after relevant keywords, not using too much broad match, making sure you're capturing the traffic that you really want to in order to protect your ROI in that channel. And then when you tie in attribution, that turns your ad spend into a real revenue lever, right? You can know exactly how much is coming from which keywords, which campaigns and which channels once we get into attribution, which I'll talk about in just a minute towards the end of this presentation. So now moving from Google into Meta ads, which for those of you who don't know is Facebook and Instagram. This is where we can create demand and retarget interested prospects. So the benefit of Meta, and now we start to get into how all of these things work together and compound, right? You have SEO for organic search AI visibility. You have Google Ads for capturing that high intent search demand. And now we move into Meta. And Meta can get your brand in front of the right audience early on, maybe before they're even searching for the services you offer, right? And we can do this with behavior and interest targeting. We can do this with lookalike audiences. So uploading a list of your current customers, uploading it into Meta's algorithms and having it create a lookalike audience, people with similar behaviors online, so you can target them. And then retargeting keeps you visible after the first touch. So maybe someone sees your website, goes onto it, looks around, but they don't quite convert into a lead because they're just not ready to pull the trigger yet. That's okay. We can now retarget them on Meta and stay top of mind until they are ready to pull the trigger. And now they're going to go back to you, book a call, and likely go with you because you've been keeping up that visibility, staying top of mind, showcasing your brand in a visual aspect using high quality images and video content, right? No one clicks on an ad and signs a contract for a $150,000 backyard in the same day. That's just not how people make decisions, right? So we need to stay top of mind and nurture them. And these integrated funnels move people from curiosity to signed contract over time. So now let's move into LinkedIn ads, which are similar to Meta, but this is now more focused for those of you who are running commercial operations. LinkedIn ads help influence key B2B decision makers. So with LinkedIn, we want to reach commercial buyers earlier. We want to reach commercial decision makers before they're actively searching, right? So not everyone is going to be in the market for switching their landscape provider, but if we can plant a seed in their head that they might be missing out on something if they don't at least talk to you, now you have a chance to engage the sales team in a sales process. And with LinkedIn, the benefit of this specific platform is that we can target hyper specific B2B audiences by filtering the company they work for, their job title, their interests, their membership associations, and more, their company size. This is a very, very valuable tool for the H commercial layer of this entire system. LinkedIn ads also keep your pipeline warmer throughout longer sales cycles through retargeting. So just like Meta, you can target cold audiences, people who've never heard of you or your brand before. Then you can also retarget them to stay top of mind. And as we all know, commercial contracts have longer sales cycles, so it's even more important to stay visible throughout that entire sales cycle, right? And then just a quick bonus note, content offers and lead magnets are very, very valuable here. They're valuable for residential, but even more valuable for commercial because they are tools to help enable your sales team even more. So just for example, what's a content offer or what's a lead magnet? It is a piece of content or something of value that resonates with your target ICP, your ideal customer profile, in exchange for their information. So for example, on one of our partners' website, landscaping and maintenance should enhance your property, not create headaches, right? If you're dealing with missed visits, poor communication, or declining service, it might be time to switch. This free guide helps you assess your current provider and determine if it's time for a change. Download now and take control of your property's landscaping. So going back to messaging and that foundation at the very beginning, we have to understand their pain points, understand what's valuable for them and what might be going through their head. And now you can craft a content offer around that to give them something of value in exchange for their contact information. And now, if you have it set up properly, you have a tool to enable your sales reps, your biz dev team to see, okay, this person raised their hand and said they're interested in potentially switching. Now I have an open door to start a dialogue, to have a conversation. They can use this as an in to further deepen that relationship and advance their sales goals, right? So LinkedIn is very, very powerful. Let's talk about reviews. Bottom line is reviews matter. They are very, very important. 86% of consumers are willing to pay more for residential service providers, such as landscapers, who have better online reviews and higher ratings. So if you're focused on profitability, potentially like weeding out tire kickers, being able to charge more for a premium service, you have to have the reviews to back it up. Next, 73% of consumers only trust reviews that were written within the last month. This is a very interesting data point, right? That means we need to have consistent and recent reviews, not just high quality, but consistent recent reviews, because consumers are looking at if they were written within the last month rather than having a gap for several months at a time and very infrequent reviews, right? And then lastly, landscaping businesses with a 4-star rating or higher receive about 62% more inquiries than those with lower ratings. Now, I want to qualify this and say 4 stars in our experience is the minimum. You need at least 4 stars, but ideally you're getting 4.5, 4.7 average star rating, and these reviews are coming in consistently. They're frequent, they're being responded to. And not only is that going to help your pricing, help your credibility, help you get more leads, that trust is going to compound. And that trust compounds faster than most owners realize. So reviews not only influence decisions before the first call, but they actually improve your local SEO as well. Google is prioritizing consistent, high quality reviews more and more when it's determining who they're going to show in search results. So specifically in that map pack where your location pops up and there's a general business overview, that is very, very important. So you'll see, for example, companies that are getting hundreds and hundreds of consistent reviews with a 4.7 average rating. Not only is that going to help build trust, get you more leads, be able to help you charge more, but that's also going to improve your visibility and show in front of more people, right? So again, we're seeing how all this works in a system. It all compounds and works together. It's not just one or the other. All these things need to be in place to scale successfully, right? So in addition to that, strong proof improves both visibility and close rates. And referrals work better when they are structured. It's important to have referrals and reviews be automated in some way so that it's not just relying on manual effort. Here we have systems and softwares to help do that, and a team to help enforce that as well. But this needs to be automated so it's happening every time. There's follow-up sequences that are enabled. Again, building more systems leverage rather than just relying on individual effort. So now we get into part 3, the final third of this entire playbook, which is building that systems leverage, driving pipeline, and closing deals. Starting off with a CRM, right? So I'm just going to back up for 1 second. We've covered the strategic foundation. We covered building the brand and relationships through a multi-channel approach from SEO to Google Ads to paid social, right? The importance of reviews. And now we're bringing it all together and connecting it as infrastructure rather than just individual scattered tactics that may or may not perform. right? So this is where it all comes together. And it starts with a CRM, a customer relationship management software gives you a real sales system. So for example, we are a HubSpot certified partner. Um, and in HubSpot or in any CRM, you have a visual pipeline that can show revenue by stage and enable accurate forecasting. So here's where we start to really talk about scale, forecasting, scaling with predictability and control, because now we see everything laid out by deal stage, the probability of it closing, the average value for a lead, things like this. And now we can tweak and pull levers and see where we need to make adjustments in order to really optimize. So now when you have a CRM, you have a visual pipeline laid out, you have lead routing to specific sales team members. This sales process becomes visible at the leadership layer instead of living in one person's memory, or maybe one sales rep has a certain way of doing things and another has another way of doing things, and it's all scattered. And if one person leaves, it messes up the whole system. Now it lives in a CRM. You can see what's moving, what's stalled, and what's underperforming. And you can really go in and diagnose and see, okay, we're getting a lot of qualified leads that are making it to the first appointment scheduled, right? But then if you notice a drop off between, let's say, the first appointment and the second appointment, or people not really going into that consideration phase, okay, now you understand you have to diagnose and fix your sales process because you're getting the qualified leads, they're getting on the first appointment, but now it's an issue of converting and closing. Or if it's the reverse, you're not getting enough qualified leads. Everyone who makes it to a first appointment is closing. Now you know it's an issue with the marketing and the messaging, and you need to tweak and optimize the top of funnel rather than the bottom, right? So this is how powerful a CRM can be. You can also see total deal amounts in the pipeline. You can see the weighted deal amount, how much is open and up for grabs in terms of sales, closed deal amounts, new deal amounts, average deal age. If, for example, with commercial, if you understand your average deal length and you're trying to shorten that, or if you're forecasting, that metric is very important. And you can also put in percentages down here for weighted amounts in order to get these numbers. So for example, you understand that 25% of the people who make it to a first appointment are likely to close. Again, now you're set up for scaling with predictability and control. So if you combine this with automations, tasks, reminders, and sequences, that's when we start to build real systems and real sales leverage. I want to get into another important factor of this part 3 of the entire playbook, which is nurture. Nurture sequences and processes. Nurture is often the missing layer, right? So following up after someone becomes a lead but doesn't close, or maximizing total lifetime value. Not every qualified prospect is ready to sign a contract today. That's very rarely the case, right? But better follow-up keeps warm opportunities moving, keeps your pipeline warmer, increases close rates, right? So nurture can get someone from a cold lead to a closed contract and a sale, but nurture also can grow that customer lifetime value on the back end through cross-selling. If people have already bought from you once, they're more likely to go to you for an upsell rather than your competition. This is also where nurture is very powerful. So we can separate this into 2 distinct buckets. These 2 main nurture layers are customer acquisition, so the initial acquisition, and then number 2, maximizing lifetime value. So that initial customer acquisition is in the short term, which is helping someone move from that initial inquiry through the actual sales pipeline without going cold. Very, very important for both residential and commercial, right? And then customer lifetime value is the more long-term nurture sequence, which is cross-selling between design build and maintenance, or between project work and recurring revenue, or on the commercial side of things, the earning those contract renewals and enhancements, because as you know, contract renewals are earned, they're not guaranteed. And then a lot of the profit margin is made on the back end on the enhancement work, right? So you need nurturing set up for the short term and the long term. Then the last component of this is attribution. This ties it all together. So now if you have your attribution set up properly, marketing shows exactly where opportunities are coming from. You can see what's coming from which channels, where to allocate more budget and investment and resources, or where things need to be optimized. Then you have a sales pipeline with attribution, tracking how opportunities move and close. And then you probably use Aspire, a similar ops tool. And all of this connects and ties back to growth and delivery, all the way from marketing to sales to ops. And the bottom line is that clear marketing ROI enables consistent, controlled growth. So when all of this is set up and implemented properly, you have clear marketing ROI to understand your dollars in versus dollars out, where things are stalled, what needs to be optimized, what's working well, and a clear path forward to scaling. So when this is done right, it looks like better fit demand instead of just random volume from word of mouth, or you don't even know where people are finding you or what's working. You have stronger forecasting and steadier revenue year round, and you can plan for seasonality. You have more confidence in what to scale and what to stop, and you have a more valuable business, no matter how you exit. If you want to pass it down to a family member or a coworker, if you're looking to sell and exit and get the most amount of money for the business you've built, that's what this looks like when it is done right. So that is the end of today's presentation, although we are going to have a Q&A. But if this resonates with you, the next step is a growth gap review where we'd have a conversation clarifying where your current growth model is breaking. We have a conversation about identifying the biggest gaps in your current system, and then we decide what would actually need to change next. And I'll just leave you with one more quote from one of our partners, Heiner Outdoor Living. Matt says, in 15 years, I've been through 7 websites and numerous marketing firms. Halstead is the only one to have hit it out of the park for me. Their design team understands branding, aesthetics, and user experience, while the marketing department has a deep knowledge of SEO, ad management, and all the other things necessary to operating a successful company. Working with them, I feel as if we have a true partner in all of our digital marketing needs. Thanks, Matt. All right. Now here's where we're going to open it up for questions. If you have any, please drop them in the chat and I will respond to them in order of when they come in. And by the way, I'm also going to drop my booking link in case anyone does want to have a conversation about whether or not we could potentially help you scale your business using this playbook. You can see my booking link in the chat. Just make sure you schedule a 45-minute time slot, not a 15-minute time slot, so we actually have time to dive into the details and I can really understand the ins and outs of your business, your goals, and how we need to get you to the next phase. How do you integrate the communication between HubSpot and Aspire? Great question. We work with partners to have a custom integration between HubSpot and Aspire, and it's really custom built based on how you need the sales process to look and how you have your Aspire account set up. So that is a custom integration that we work with on a partner-to-partner basis. There is no native integration, unfortunately, but we have found a way to do that through one of our existing partner relationships. Good question, because that is pivotal to this whole attribution point that we talked about on this slide, right? So Contacts in HubSpot automatically sync to properties in Aspire, deals go into opportunities, and then opportunities come back into closed deals with revenue tied in, closed revenue one, and then gets the attribution all the way back to how they found you, what channel, how much that was worth, so you can really measure your ROI. But with that integration, it is all automated. Helps reduce friction on your end as well. Great question. All right. Any other questions? Feel free to drop them in the chat. Also, everyone will be getting a recording of this. So if you didn't hop on from the beginning, that's no problem. You'll get an email within the next day or two with this recording so you can go back and review it yourself. All right. Doesn't look like we have anything else. Last call for questions. How do you position yourself on Google? All right, great question. That was covered in the towards the beginning of the presentation. Maybe you were not on that, but if you watch the recording, you'll be able to see there's a whole section in terms of SEO and AI visibility and how to do that. It really comes down to a few different things. It comes down to content on your website, how your website is set up and structured. It comes down to consistency of reviews. It comes down to relevance and authority and backlinks. It's a lot of things, but overall, it really comes down to high quality content on a site that's structured properly and consistent 5-star reviews, to put it short. But check out the recording uh, to learn more detail. We dove into it earlier. Great question. Anything else?
Thank you, Austin.
Thank you. Everyone have a great day.